Her Excellencies, all distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the launch event of the OECD Economic Survey of Thailand 2025, Building the Foundations for Stronger Growth, jointly organized by NESDC and OECD. My name is Chatkapat Bunnak
and my name is Supisala Pichen Sopon.
We are Persian panelists from NESDC and we will serve you as your MC for today's event.
On behalf of the organizer, it is our great pleasure to welcome you to today's event, presenting the latest in-depth assessment of the country's economic performance by exploring the critical reforms and structural adjustments necessary to enhance productivity, achieve sustainable growth, and structural transformations. This study is the result of the close collaborations between the OECD and the NESDC.
The event aims to disseminate the study's findings to relevant stakeholders, build a shared understanding of Thailand's productivity challenges and opportunities, and promote the practical implementations of the report's recommendations in the future policy development. Thank you very much for joining us today, and we're looking forward to an engaging and productive discussion. To begin our program, it is my distinct honor to invite Her Excellency Supamat Isarapakdi, Minister attached to the Prime Minister Office, to deliver her opening remarks. Her Excellency, the floor is yours.
Mr. František Bursika, OECD Deputy Secretary General, Kun Danusha Pichayanan, Secretary General of NESDC. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to deliver the opening remarks at the launch of the OECD Economic Survey of Thailand 2025. Building the foundations for stronger growth, which is the third edition for Thailand. After we have published the previous two economic surveys in 2020 and 2023, I would also like to extend my sincere congratulations to the OECD and the NESDC for their strong collaboration on this important initiative and for organizing today's event. As we are all aware, Thailand is currently confronting critical economic challenges. Therefore, with limited time, we have the government under the administration of Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul has determined to implement key strategies under so-called quick big win approach to not only deliver short-term measures, but also to lay down foundations to enhance economic competitiveness over the longer term. The government is thus pursuing targeted economic stimulus that promotes broad-based and inclusive growth under 5 key pillars. The first pillar is to stimulate the economy and revitalize tourism. Our first priority is to boost purchasing power and domestic consumption, including the co-payment scheme known as Half and Half Plus, together with the state welfare card, which provides essential relief to 13.4 million low-income citizens. For tourism sector, we are also stimulating domestic travel, especially to secondary cities through targeted tax incentives. The second pillar is to reduce household debt and alleviating financial distress. A central component of this initiative is the acquisition of non-performing loans or NPLs from financial institutions managed by asset management companies. These agencies will offer flexible repayment plans tailored to each debtor's capacity, covering 3.4 million small-scale borrowers. The third pillar is to increase liquidity for SMEs to ensure business continuity and preserve employment. The Cabinet just approved SME assistance package last week. This includes loan guarantees through the Thai Credit Guarantee Corporation as well as a Bank of Thailand-backed credit guarantee fund. The fourth pillar is focusing on increasing long-term savings and strengthening the social safety net. The government is committed to strengthening financial security for citizens while fostering long-term economic transformation. To broaden access to long-term savings, a new saving bond scheme will be introduced. The last pillar aims to invest in the future. The government aims to stimulate private investment and attract more targeted foreign direct investment or FDI by deploying the BOI Fast Pass and reduce barriers, particularly on administrative procedures and regulations that have delayed over 470 billion baht worth of approved investment projects. Ladies and gentlemen, not only strengthening household and business sector, but the government also realized that the fiscal sustainability also need immediate attention as OECD highlighted in the Economic Survey report. We have officially implemented a new and stringent medium-term fiscal framework FY 2027 to 2030 or MTFF as our blueprint for fiscal sustainability, aiming to reduce the fiscal deficit not more than 3% of GDP by FY 2029. Additionally, future public expenditure will be strategically managed and targeted with greater emphasis on innovative financing mechanisms rather than additional sovereign borrowing, particularly through the Thailand Future Fund and public-private partnerships. Ladies and gentlemen, regarding the OECD's accession process, I would like to reaffirm that the government under Prime Minister Anutin has put this agenda as one of top priorities. The Prime Minister already announced that the government must accelerate efforts to join the OECD, aiming to complete membership well ahead of the original 2030 target. To serve this, the Cabinet has mandated the adoption of over 240 OECD legal instruments as performance indicators for senior civil servants, aligning Thailand's public administration with internationally recognized standards. At the most recent meeting in October, we reached agreement on strategic priorities to accelerate our accession efforts. These priorities include aligning national policies and practice with the accession roadmap, deepening Thailand's international cooperation with the OECD, and revising domestic laws and regulations to ensure consistency with OECD legal instruments. We have established the National Committee chaired by the Prime Minister to govern the OECD accession process, together with setting up of 3 subcommittees, including the Subcommittee on Domestic Implementation, the Subcommittee on Strengthening Relations with the OECD, and the Subcommittee on Legal and Regulatory Alignment with OECD standards. I am certain that the government prioritizes our work across all these areas to be aligned with OECD standards in order to support Thailand's progress toward membership. This report also represents a significant milestone in the deepening partnership between Thailand and the OECD. It provides a solid foundation for evidence-based policy dialogue and serves as a practical roadmap for countries' reform. I would like to conclude by expressing my sincere hope that today's event will be a great success. I am confident Thailand will overcome today's challenges and be able to build a stronger future. The government remains fully committed to OECD accession and to deepening our strategic partnership for the benefit of the Thai people. Thank you. ขอบคุณค่ะ
Thank you very much to Minister for her thoughtful opening remarks, which has provided excellent foundations for today's discussions and the economic survey of Thailand.
Next, we are pleased to invite Mr. Fantichek Lusika, OECD Deputy Secretary General, to the stage to present an overview and share key messages from the OECD Economic Survey of Thailand 2025. Please join me in welcoming him to the stage.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a real privilege and pleasure for me to be here today with you. Dear Minister Supamas Isarabhakdi, Secretary General Danucha Pichayanan, distinguished guests. First, thank you really very much for the real warm welcome in Bangkok. From -2 in Paris, 32 in Bangkok is really a present change. Let me start by expressing my sincere condolences on the passing of Her Majesty Queen Sirikit. That is a great loss for the Thai people. And let me also express my heartfelt solidarity with the victims of the severe flooding in the south of Thailand. And also best regards from the Secretary General, Mr. Matthias Coleman, who wanted to be here with you very much and who is the staunch supporter of the Thai accession to the OECD. And I'm sure that he can manage by the end of his second term, but he has unfortunately to stay in Paris because of the serious family reasons. It is a pleasure to be here in Bangkok to present the latest economic survey of Thailand. The first, as Madam Minister mentioned, there were already 3, but this is the first since Thailand became an OECD accession candidate country in 2024. OECD accession is a transformative journey that will support Thailand in shaping a broad reform agenda and set the stage for durable growth and rising living standards in line with Thailand's goal of achieving high income status by 2037. Our survey highlights Thailand's impressive achievements in improving economic and social outcomes and identifies opportunities for Thailand to continue its reform momentum. Slide 2, please, if there is someone to. Thank you. Here we are. Thailand has seen significant income increases over past decades. Between the years 2000 and 2024, per capita incomes rose from around 30% of the OECD average to just over 40%, which is significantly above the average of G20 emerging economies, which are standing at 35%. However, progress in convergence has been disrupted over the past 5 years, reflecting weak productivity growth, which highlights the importance of renewed reform efforts. Slide 3, please. Headline inflation has been negative since April 2025, largely due to declining food and energy price developments, while inflation expectations are around the midpoint of the central bank's target, which is between 1 and 3%. Monetary policy should remain prudent and data-dependent and stand ready to reduce policy rates further if growth slows and inflation remains low. Let's look at the slide number 4. Looking ahead, the GDP growth is expected at 2% in 2025, then a little bit slowing down to 1.5% in 2026, and again taking some steam in 2027 to reach 2.6%. Activity in the first half of this year was supported by export front-loading in anticipation of higher tariffs. In the second half of this year, GDP growth has weakened due to lower growth in trade and investment. Growth is projected to rise again in 2027 as the peak impact of higher tariffs passes and both domestic demand and export will strengthen. This outlook you have in front of you also is subject to significant risks. Uncertainty around tariffs has fallen somewhat since Thailand reached a bilateral agreement with the United States in August that puts most tariff rates at 19%. However, long-standing concerns about elevated private sector debt remain. And in my further speech, I will focus on 4 recommendations and maybe 6 policy areas which we found as the key for the future positive development of the Thai economy. Household and corporate debt are at the combined 107% of the GDP, up from around 160% before the COVID-19 pandemic. This private sector debt burden is sizable and exceeds those of neighboring countries, including Indonesia with 40% of GDP and Malaysia of 157. Slide 6, please. So, ambitious policy action will be needed to boost growth and durably strengthen living standards in Thailand. And here comes the first priority as recommended by the OECD. The first priority is improving the fiscal position. Slide 7. Fiscal consolidation is key to ensure debt sustainability and maintain fiscal space to react to future shocks. Thailand's public debt ceiling of 70% of GDP serves as a key anchor, though it has been heading closer towards that ceiling, reaching 65% of GDP as October this year. Putting public debt on a downward path would require stabilizing the fiscal deficit in the near term and strengthening central government fiscal rules to improve medium-term debt sustainability. Slide number 8, please. And also I will slowly go to 6 areas which I mentioned. I will mention them in a speech, which is aging and pensions, tax and revenues, regulatory system, public versus private business, education and informality, and environmental context. On slide number 8, we see Thailand's rapidly aging population is leading to increased spending pressures. The old age dependency ratios rose significantly from 9 adults aged 65 and over for every 100 people of working age in 2000 to 21 in 2023. Birth rates are well below the level that would be needed to keep the population constant. The fiscal impacts of these trends are significant, as pensions and healthcare account of 80% of all public spending. The life expectancy with good news, is 75 years, among the highest in the region and comparable to higher income OECD countries. But current retirement ages are low relative to other countries in the regions and to the OECD countries. Compared to reducing retirement incomes or to increasing contribution rates, working longer and contributing for longer would be the most acceptable and achievable way to improve the financial sustainability of the pension system. Next slide, please. Now I come to the second area, the tax and revenues. So how can we go out from this situation? Optimizing revenues can help prepare for future spending needs. As in other countries in the region, tax revenues are low due to narrow tax bases and low tax rates, limiting capacity for a sustained reduction in the fiscal deficit and for financing public spending needs. In 2023, tax revenues stood at 17% of GDP compared to 34% in the OECD. Thailand has scope to enhance the contribution of taxation to deficit reduction and quality public services. And maybe I can say here, feeling the full solidarity coming from the small country that has on the shoulders the same recommendations, which are extremely politically complex and difficult. But the thing is that the reality calls for these actions to be taken in case we would like to maintain the sustainability of the public finances. So there are two ways in Thailand. Increasing the rate and coverage of value-added taxes is one option, given Thailand's low standard value-added tax at 7%. And the second is lowering the income threshold at which people start paying personal income taxes as an other option, as only a small share of the workforce pays income tax. Slide number 10. Now we come to the second priority, and it is to increase productivity growth in order to achieve faster improvements in living standards. And that leads to my third area, which is the regulatory system in Thailand. Thailand was among the first Southeast Asian countries to successfully pursue integration into world trade and global supply chains. It was boosting its economic development. However, Thailand's labor productivity growth has slowed. It averaged 2.1% between 2015 and 2023, compared to 4.8% between 2010 and 2015. This brings us to the recommendation that regulatory reforms are needed to revive business dynamism and productivity growth. Thailand's regulations can be made much more competition-friendly, as indicated by the OECD product market regulations indicators. Thailand is the fourth most restrictive out of the 47 countries, and its regulatory frameworks are markedly less competition-friendly than those of many OECD countries. Regulatory reforms that reduce barriers to competition and red tape would help, including by introducing a silent disconsent rule for issuing permits and licenses. Restrictions and foreign direct investment should be eased to attract more capital and facilitate trade. Am I speaking too long, I think? I'm still in the half of the report. Thank you very much for that. Foreign direct investment has played a key role in Thailand's export success. Though regulations on foreign investors remain considerably more restrictive than in the OECD on average, according to the OECD Foreign Direct Investment Regulatory Restrictive Index. I mean, in a 0 to 1 scale, Thailand is 0.24, whereas the OECD countries are 0.05. So that's something, I mean, there is a room for improvement. Evaluating and reducing current restrictions to foreign direct investment, including on foreign ownership restrictions in services and advancing negotiation on free trade agreements with major export markets would help. And there are several of them going on, which will contribute very significantly to the GDP, like with EFTA, South Korea, European Union. Slide 14, please. Now, this brings me to the fourth area, state versus private business. Strengthening the level playing field between state-owned enterprises and the private sector is key to reinvigorate private sector dynamism. The strong role of state-owned enterprises in Thailand's economy creates substantial distortions. Competition between publicly and privately owned firms could be increased by granting the competition authority the necessary powers to effectively restrict anti-competitive behaviors of state-owned enterprises and by ensuring that they are subject to the same corporate norms as the private firms. That's a challenge. The third recommendation, or the third political priority which the report brings, is tackling informality. Informality remains a key challenge for the Thai economy. 63% of workers have an informal job, which is somewhat lower than in Indonesia and Vietnam, but still high enough. A comprehensive strategy is needed to reduce informality in order to improve working conditions and raise productivity and living standards of the population. Improving education and skill outcomes would increase workers' access to jobs in the formal economy, which typically require more skills than those in the informal sector and better paid, hopefully. The fifth area which I would like to mention is education. And the high school system has scope for improvement. Students' average score in reading skill and mathematics is below the OECD average, according to our program for international student assessment, very well known PISA. Modernizing the school curriculum would help, including by emphasizing the active role and input of teachers in reform efforts and improving teachers' training. Slide 18. Well, strengthening vocational education could be foster formalization. Vocational education and training enhance opportunities to skilled, well-paid jobs for school leavers who might otherwise be in informal employment. 30% of Thai upper secondary students follow vocational certificate programs in line with the OECD average, but well below Thailand's own target of 60%. The quality of vocational education should be improved through greater alignment with labor market needs and by enhancing pathways from vocational education courses to higher education. And here again, allow me, I'm very fresh on the position, really very fresh. And before I was the ambassador of Slovakia, and when I read these vocational education, school reforms, etc., it reminded me that Slovakia and Thailand can very closely cooperate on both these issues, because these are the same recommendations. But that's like to say that really the context may be geographically different, but the contexts are very similar. The sixth area and the fourth priority I would like to mention is the climate change and adapt to its consequences. Thailand is highly exposed to the adverse effects, that's slide 20, of climate change, and we saw it in the recent floods as well. The economic cost of climate change-related damages is significant, with an average annual cost of almost 0.7% of the GDP between 2003 and 2024. A comprehensive and proactive approach is needed through improved early warning and disaster management systems and higher investment in climate-resilient infrastructure. Enhanced zoning regulations and building codes to reduce exposure of structures to disasters would also help. Decarbonizing the energy sector will be the key to reach net zero greenhouse gas emission, and we really very much applaud the ambition goal of the Thai government to advance the net zero target from 2065 to 2050, reducing the carbon intensity and electricity generation. Accelerating the phase-out of power generation from coal and the expansion of renewable energy resources, including by improving competition and streamlining investment projects in the sustainable energy sector, is needed to durably reduce carbon emission. And now, in closing, after so many data and so many numbers, but I think useful data that can guide us all, to the better policies for better lives. It has to be noted that Thailand has made significant reform progress across policy areas, putting it on a stronger growth path that is lifting incomes and living standards. To continue this survey provides recommendations I mentioned before to improve public finances, boost productivity growth, tackle informality, and strengthen climate change adaptation. Through the accession process to the OECD, we will continue to support Thailand in making progress towards these and other reform priorities for a more prosperous and sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Secretary General, for sharing the key messages from the OECD report. Thank you.
We will now delve into the national perspective and the strategic roadmap ahead to discuss the policy framework for driving Thailand economic growth. It is my distinct privilege to invite Mr. Danusha Pityanan, Secretary General of the National Economics and Social Development Council of Thailand, to share on how the NESDC can build upon the finding of these studies and outline the NESDC future approach to driving national economic progress.
Your Excellency, Ms. Suphama Deshrapakdi, Minister attached to the Prime Minister's Office, Mr. František Ruseka, OECD Deputy Secretary General, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Well, first of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the OECD, especially the team from the OECD Economic Department, for the insightful analysis and dedicated effort in preparing the Economic Survey of Thailand in 2025, which is the third survey report for Thailand that was completed in close collaboration with NSDC and other Thai authorities. The finding and recommendation in this report are truly valuable, and I would like to assure you that the Thai government put them as one of top priorities and remains fully committed to fostering strong and sustainable economic growth and development. As you are all aware, Thailand economic growth has moderated steadily over the past 2 decades due to not only cyclical factors, but mainly also to the structural limitation. The country has faced with key challenges, including aging population and high informality, which affect labor force and fiscal position, together with low level of investment and slow productivity growth, with way to pursue more favorable business environment, particularly in terms of competition and corruption, as well as fragmented social protection system. These issues are considered as key for Thailand in unleashing its development potential. Moreover, the accelerating pace of digital transformation alongside rising climate-related risks further underline the urgency of structural reform in order to unlock Thailand's long-term growth potentials and ensuring economic resilience, in particular under an increasing uncertain global environment. Ladies and gentlemen, the survey comes at a timely moment as NESDC is in the process of preparing the 14th National Economic and Social Development Plan, covering the period of 2028 to 2032. This economic survey not only offers practical recommendations for maintaining macroeconomic stability, but also highlight opportunity and challenges of Thailand. The NSDC will draw on the findings of this survey as a key input for shaping Thailand's medium-term development strategy. Our objective aims at addressing structural bottlenecks, raise productivity, and strengthening Thailand's competitiveness. Key strategies to consider include, first, Thailand continues to pursue economic restructuring, which are key development agenda under the 13th plan, with a focus on sectors such as digital industry, advanced manufacturing, agri-food processing, tourism, and medical and wellness services. However, As this survey highlights, sectoral strategy alone are not sufficient. Equal attention must be given to strengthening the foundation of growth, including improving SME competitiveness, facilitating investment, enhancing market efficiencies, and ensuring that workforce development is closely aligned with labor market needs through demand-driven approach. Second, the report makes clear that there remains scope for further improvement in governance and the rule of law. The government is therefore continuing efforts to streamline regulations, reduce administrative burdens, and accelerate digital transformation in the public sector. At the same time, we remain firmly committed to strengthening regulatory transparency, expanding digital government services, and reinforcing anti-corruption and accountability mechanisms. These reforms are essential to strengthening investor confidence, improving business competitive environment, and fostering innovation. And third, human capital development remains central to raising productivity and promoting inclusive growth. Thailand is placing stronger emphasis on improving education qualities, expanding lifelong learning, and creating flexible pathway for skill development across all age groups. We are also working to improve labor market efficiencies by strengthening labor market information system, promoting better alignment between wages and productivity, and widening access to quality employment opportunities. In line with the survey recommendations, the government is also advancing labor protection reform and moving towards a more integrated social protection system. This reform will improve targeting, reduce duplication, and ensure that support reaches those who need it the most. And fourth, with respect to natural resource and environment, the survey also shows that climate risks are no longer a distant concern, but an immediate economic challenge for Thailand. Flood, droughts, and rising temperatures are already imposing significant costs on households, businesses, and communities. Climate adaptation, together with the strengthening water resources management, improving land use planning, and enhanced early warning and disaster response system are therefore essential priorities. In parallel, Thailand is accelerating the transition towards a low emissions economy, as the cabinet recently approved the draft of Climate Change Act that will include key guidelines and mechanisms to advance carbon market mechanisms and strengthening environmental regulation. These efforts are not only necessary to accelerate our goal achievement of becoming net zero emission before 2050 as targeted, but also critical to maintain competitiveness in a world where environment standards are rising. And finally, the report underscores that innovation and technology are key drivers of long-term growth. Thailand is therefore strengthening investment in research and development, improving technology adoption by firms, especially SMEs, and deepening collaboration between research institutions and industry. At the same time, we are improving intellectual property system, upgrading infrastructure to international standard, and expanding STEM skills. By strengthening our innovation ecosystem, Thailand will be better positioned to generate higher value-added activities and compete effectively in the global economy. Ladies and gentlemen, We are now at the initial stage of the OECD accession process. The NSDC, as one of the lead agencies of the Thai government, plays a key role in coordinating with all relevant stakeholders, including government agencies, the private sector, the media, and the general public, to communicate the benefits of becoming OECD membership. In this context, the economic survey and today's event are especially important in helping the public sector better understanding these benefits, particularly in terms of strengthening Thailand's policy design and implementation framework. And this will enable Thailand to overcome existing constraints to respond more effectively to the challenges we are currently facing. And as the host of this event, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to the OECD as well as our distinguished panelists and to all participants for joining us today. The remainder of today's program promises to be both enriching and thoughtful provoking, with expert perspective that will provide valuable insights into Thailand's economic transformation, particularly in the area of productivity enhancement and reform of the informal economy. In closing, I believe we all share a common understanding that accelerating Thailand's economic growth is our foremost priority. This must be driven by stronger productivity and competitiveness in line with the OECD standard. With close cooperation and continued support from the OECD, Thailand is well placed to take meaningful steps towards this goal, including progress towards OECD membership. As we move forward, we sincerely hope that our cooperation and partnership will continue to grow in both strength and impact. Together, we can build a future that is more sustainable, inclusive, and resilient for the people of Thailand. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to the Secretary General for his thoughtful remarks, highlighting the importance of implementing robust policy frameworks to secure Thailand's long-term competitiveness.
Her Excellency, all distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed to the next sections, we would like to invite Her Excellency Supamat Isarapakdi Minister attached to the Prime Minister Office and Mr. František Luska, OECD Deputy Secretary General, to come on the stage for the token of appreciation presentation and the photo section. Please. Thank you. Excellencies, please still remain on the stage for a moment. Next, may I also invite Mr. Danusha Pichianan, Secretary General of NESDC, to kindly join us stage for a group photo section.
Thank you very much. Now may I kindly ask Mr. František and Mr. Danusha to please return to your seats. Thank you. For the next sessions, I would like to invite our esteemed panelists on the stage for a token of appreciation and a photo session. Please. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now honored to present the tokens appreciation to Dr. Yen Hanau. Thank you. Next, Dr. Somarat Jantarat. Thank you. And next, Ms. Piyapat Thapin. Thank you. And next, Dr. Nakarin Pinpatomarat. And our moderator, Dr. Ananchanok Sakuntawat. Next, I would like to invite honorable guests to come on the stage for the group photo. Mr. Fantišek Lusika.
His all distinguished guests that already is be on the stage. So our panelists, thank you. Thank you once again to our speaker, panelists, and honorable guests for joining on the group photo section. You may now return to your seats. Thank you.
We will now have a short coffee and tea break. For your convenience, refreshment will be served inside of the room. Our staff will bring drink directly to you. So please enjoy the refreshments as we prepare to begin the roundtable discussions on Thailand's economic restructuring through productivity enhancement and informal sector reform.
สมาชิก OECD เราต้องเตรียมพร้อมเรื่องอะไรและมีขั้นตอนอย่างไรบ้างการเข้าเป็นสมาชิก OECD มีหลายขั้นตอนโดยก่อนจะยื่นเรื่องขอเข้าเป็นสมาชิกอย่างเป็นทางการนั้นเราจำเป็นต้องประเมินความพร้อมของตนเองก่อนซึ่ง OECD ได้จัดทำ Framework for the Consideration of Prospective Members เพื่อให้ประเทศที่สนใจใช้ประเมินความพร้อมของตนเอง 5 ด้านประกอบด้วย 1. State of Readiness สถานะความพร้อมของประเทศในการปรับมาตรฐานให้สอดคล้องกับ OECD 2. Countries' commitment to OECD values and membership obligations ความมุ่งมั่นของประเทศในการปฏิบัติตามค่านิยมและผลผูกพันประเทศสมาชิก OECD 3. Institutional framework กรอบการบริหารภาครัฐและโครงสร้างเชิงสถาบัน 4. Key economic indicators ตัวชี้วัดภาวะเศรษฐกิจที่สำคัญและ 5. Relations with OECD การมีส่วนร่วมกับ OECD กระบวนการเข้าเป็นสมาชิก OECD แบ่งออกเป็น 2 ระยะได้แก่ กระบวนการสมัครเข้าเป็นสมาชิกและกระบวนการภาคยานุวัตรหรือการเข้าเป็นสมาชิกกระบวนการสมัครเข้าเป็นสมาชิกจะเริ่มจากประเทศผู้สมัครยื่นเรื่องขอเข้าเป็นสมาชิกโดย OECD จะมีกระบวนการภายในการลงมติเห็นชอบรับประเทศผู้สมัครเข้าสู่กระบวนการภาคยานุวัตรหลังจากนั้น OECD จะจัดทำ Accession Roadmap เพื่อให้ประเทศผู้สมัครใช้เป็นแนวทางดำเนินการในกระบวนการภาคยานุวัตรต่อไปสำหรับกระบวนการภาคยานุวัตรไม่มีกรอบระยะเวลาที่แน่นอนขึ้นอยู่กับการดำเนินการของประเทศผู้สมัครในการปรับปรุงกฎระเบียบนโยบายและการดำเนินการให้สอดคล้องกับมาตรฐาน OECD โดยเมื่อผ่านการประเมินและมีมติเอกฉันท์จากคณะมนตรีของ OECD แล้ว OECD จะเชิญประเทศผู้สมัครเข้าเป็นสมาชิกและประเทศนั้นต้องยอมรับข้อผูกพันทางกฎหมายจึงจะถือว่าเข้าเป็นสมาชิก OECD โดยสมบูรณ์ทั้งนี้การที่ไทยมีความร่วมมือกับ OECD ผ่านโครงการ Country Program ตั้งแต่ระยะที่ 1 มาจนถึงระยะที่ 2 ในปัจจุบันได้ช่วยส่งเสริมการเข้าเป็นภาคีตราสารทางกฎหมายของ OECD และสนับสนุนให้ไทยสามารถยกระดับสถานะในคณะกรรมการต่างๆของ OECD ซึ่งเป็นประเด็นที่ OECD ให้ความสำคัญในการพิจารณารับประเทศผู้สมัครเข้าเป็นสมาชิกเนื่องจากเป็นหลักฐานเชิงประจักษ์ที่แสดงให้เห็นว่าประเทศผู้สมัครมีความพร้อมและความมุ่งมั่นที่จะปรับมาตรฐานให้สอดคล้องกับ OECD ปัจจุบันไทยเข้าเป็นภาคีตราสารทางกฎหมายของ OECD จำนวน 10 ฉบับซึ่งสามารถค้นหารายชื่อตราสารที่ไทยเข้าเป็นภาคีแล้วได้ที่เว็บไซต์ของ OECD จากงานวิจัยของ TDRI ระบุว่าไทยจะได้รับประโยชน์จากการเข้าเป็นสมาชิก OECD แบบเต็มรูปแบบหรือ Full Member มากกว่าเข้าร่วมในคณะกรรมการต่างๆในฐานะของประเทศที่ไม่ใช่สมาชิกหรือ Non-Member โดยประโยชน์ที่ไทยจะได้รับเช่น 1. การปฏิรูปโครงสร้างหลายมิติและมีมาตรฐานเทียบเท่าสากล 2. การเพิ่มขีดความสามารถในการแข่งขันและโอกาสเข้าถึงตลาดประเทศสมาชิก 3. การเข้าถึงฐานข้อมูลเศรษฐกิจโลกที่หลากหลาย 4. การได้รับคำปรึกษาและความช่วยเหลือทางวิชาการ 5. การสร้างภาพลักษณ์ที่ดีและส่งเสริมบทบาทไทยในเวทีโลกอย่างไรก็ตามการเข้าเป็นสมาชิก OECD อาจส่งผลกระทบต่อเศรษฐกิจและสังคมในบางเรื่องเช่นการแข่งขันทางการค้าและบริการที่เพิ่มสูงขึ้นความผันผวนต่ออัตราแลกเปลี่ยนจากการไหลเข้าออกของเงินทุนระยะสั้นและการเปิดเสรีการลงทุนโดยตรงจากต่างประเทศทั้งนี้ OECD เปิดให้ประเทศสมาชิกสามารถจัดทำข้อสงวนการลงทุนในบางกิจการให้เฉพาะผู้ประกอบการภายในประเทศได้รวมถึงการเจรจาขอจัดทำข้อสงวนอื่นๆซึ่งไทยจะต้องดำเนินการภายในประเทศเพื่อลดผลกระทบดังกล่าวที่อาจเกิดขึ้นเมื่อเข้าเป็นสมาชิก OECD อย่างเต็มรูปแบบการเข้าเป็นสมาชิก OECD ไม่เพียงแต่จะช่วยยกระดับมาตรฐานของไทยให้เป็นที่ยอมรับระดับสากลแต่ยังเป็นการแสดงบทบาทนำที่เข้มแข็งของไทยที่พร้อมจะก้าวไปข้างหน้าและพร้อมมีส่วนร่วมในการกำหนดทิศทางเศรษฐกิจโลกอย่างสร้างสรรค์และยั่งยืนมาร่วมเป็นส่วนหนึ่งในการขับเคลื่อนประเทศไทยให้เข้าเป็นสมาชิก OECD เชื่อมไทยเชื่อมโลกเพื่อคุณภาพชีวิตที่ดีกว่าติดตามความเคลื่อนไหวทั้งหมดได้ที่
การเพื่อความร่วมมือทางเศรษฐกิจและการพัฒนา Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development หรือ OECD เป็นองค์กรระหว่างประเทศที่มีบทบาทสำคัญในการให้ข้อมูลวิจัยและคำปรึกษาแลกเปลี่ยนแนวปฏิบัติที่ดีและจัดทำข้อเสนอแนะเชิงนโยบายเพื่อส่งเสริมความมั่นคงความเท่าเทียมความเป็นอยู่ที่ดีและคุณภาพชีวิตที่ดีขึ้นตามวิสัยทัศน์ Better Policies for Better Lives โดย OECD ก่อตั้งขึ้นเมื่อปี 1961 ปัจจุบัน OECD มีสมาชิกทั้งหมด 38 ประเทศจากภูมิภาคยุโรปอเมริกาเหนือลาตินอเมริกาและเอเชียแปซิฟิกโดยมีสำนักงานใหญ่ตั้งอยู่ที่กรุงปารีสประเทศฝรั่งเศสภารกิจหน้าที่ของ OECD มีดังนี้ 1. ส่งเสริมให้เกิดความร่วมมือเพื่อแก้ปัญหาเศรษฐกิจโลกโดยจัดให้มีเวทีสำหรับแลกเปลี่ยนข้อมูลและประสบการณ์เชิงนโยบายระหว่างกัน 2. รวบรวมและเผยแพร่ข้อมูลสถิติที่สำคัญโดย OECD จะจัดทำหนังสือเผยแพร่ความรู้ด้านต่างๆเป็นประจำทุกปีรวมถึงมีฐานข้อมูลเศรษฐกิจโลกและเศรษฐกิจของประเทศทั่วโลกมากกว่า 40 รายการฐานข้อมูล 3. เป็นแหล่งความรู้และเผยแพร่ข้อมูลเชิงลึกรายประเทศโดยมีผู้เชี่ยวชาญทั้งในทางทฤษฎีและปฏิบัติ 4. ให้คำปรึกษาแก่หน่วยงานของรัฐบาลของประเทศต่างๆและให้บริการศึกษาวิจัยแก่องค์กรระหว่างประเทศอื่นๆ เช่น UN IMF 5. กำหนดมาตรฐานของโลกที่ครอบคลุมหลากหลายสาขาที่มีความสำคัญต่อการพัฒนาประเทศโดยการกำหนดเป็นตราสารหรือเอกสารอื่นๆที่ส่งเสริมให้เกิดการขยายตัวทางเศรษฐกิจโลกรวมถึงความร่วมมือด้านต่างๆอาทิ ภาษี สิ่งแวดล้อม พลังงาน การศึกษาการต่อต้านคอร์รัปชันและธรรมาภิบาลเป็นต้น
We will now begin the meeting shortly. May I kindly invite all participants who are outside of the room to please make your way into the venue and take your seats as we are about to begin. Thank you.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, We now begin the roundtable discussions on Thailand economics, reconstruction through productivity enhancement and informal sector reform.
In these panels, our speaker will discuss the challenges hindering Thailand's competitiveness and explore the opportunity found integrating the informal sector into the formal economy. The discussions will cover the key structural reforms, including fair competitions, improved regulatory frameworks, and enhanced industrial efficiency.
To guide us through the discussions, it is my pleasure to introduce our moderator, Dr. Ananchonok Sukontawat, Director of Macroeconomic Strategy and Planning Division at the NESDC. May I invite Dr. Ananchonok to the stage. Thank you.
Now, may I invite our panelists to kindly join us on the stage. Dr. Yen Arnold, Head of Divisions at the OECD Economics Department. He has over 19 years of experience at the OECD and the World Bank. His expertise include economic growth, regulations, competitions, taxations, financial market policies, trade and investment policies, labor markets and pension system, and also infrastructures. Next, Dr. Somarat Chantarat, Executive Director of the Poi Eung Pakon Institute for Economic Research. Today, she will discuss the evaluations of Thailand's productivity over the past decade.
Next, Ms. Piyala Thapin, Acting Director of Litigation Divisions at the Trade Competitions Commissions of Thailand. She is the specialist in competitive law. She will discuss the key issues and policy directions regarding Thailand competitions and productivities. Last but not least, Dr. Nakalin Pin Pathomrat, Director of the Bangkok Metropolitan Social Security Office Area 5, Ministry of Labor, who is oversee the administrations and deliveries of social security service and benefits across the key metropolitan areas.
At this point, I would like to pass the floor to our moderator, Dr. Ananchonok Sukontawat. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. And thank you all for coming and joining us today. Welcome to our panel discussion on the topic of Thailand's economic restructuring through productivity enhancement and also informal sector reform. As you can see from the topics, it's not quite new for us. I mean, for Thai economy, we talk about this productivity kind of thing and also informal sector kind of thing for quite some time. However, it's still very crucial. It still remains crucial and very timely for the Thai economy to discuss of this topic again. As you know, Thai economy, as you listen to what our minister and also the Deputy Secretary General and also our Secretary General as well mentioned, focus in particular on the economic growth that has slowly, steadily over time. For NESDC, we just have our press release in November, just past a couple of weeks ago. We expect that the Thai economy this year will grow by 2%. This is exactly the same as what OECD has forecasted in your recent economic survey report. And next year, unfortunately, we're going to see a continuation of the slowdown of 1.7%. And for OECD, that was kind of like more pessimistic at 1.5%. So I would say that this slowdown of the Thai economy was not just as a result of the cyclical factors and also risk factors that has been, the Thai economy has experienced with, including COVID-19, the recent U.S. tariff, and also not to mention the climate risk, including flood in particular, and also droughts that are going to be affected in the agriculture sector. But what we're going to mention today will be in terms of the structural factors, in particular, as what we have been mentioned that the reasons of the structural factor that has been caused the Thai economy to slow will be the fact that we have very low level of investment and also low productivity growth. At the macro level, we discussed in terms of the low level of spending in research and innovation and so innovation. But however, at the micro level, it's very particularly to focus importantly on strengthening competition environment, in particular for the small firms. That's what we're going to discuss today. And another key important factor would be in terms of the size of the informal sector and also the informal employment that we have. So our panel discussion today we cover in terms of two key questions. The first one will be the impact. What are the impacts of those structural factors on our productivity growth? And the second key question will be in terms of the policy that, despite the fact that we have many, significant progress in terms of policy implementations, but the gaps still remain quite somehow that we need to, further improve. Right. So we're very fortunate enough to have the representative from both OECD and also the public sectors and also the research institute. I believe you all, they are very well known and you're all of them. So let me start with James Arno. Dr. James Arno, he's the head of division under the economic department, and he's our mission team leader for our economic survey report. So James, you know more of Thailand, maybe more than us. This is not just the first one, this is the third one already of the report. And could you just share with us what are the key takeaways from the economic survey report that you could share with us? Do we still have hope for our Thai economy? Please, James.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nunchanak, for these kind words and for this kind introduction. I should first and foremost also say thank you to our colleague Phil Hemmings, who's been one of the main authors of this report, and without whose contributions this work would not have been possible. So I think, the first thing really that the report looks at is Thailand's history and how we've come to where we are. And there we see this really strong performance. Thailand was one of the first economies in Southeast Asia to embrace the powers of FDI, of export-led growth. And that has really led Thailand a very, very far way. And that's impressive, and we can only commend Thailand for that. Now, at the same time, maintaining those same growth rates in the future is going to be more difficult, and we're already seeing that. We see that productivity growth has halved since 2015, and that maybe implies that the kind of policies that led to success in the past may not be exactly the same ones that you will need for the next step from here. And so there will be some choices to be made. Some of those choices may not please everyone. I think it's important to be prepared for that, but it's really important to build on this progress to make that next step. And what does that mean, for example, for the public sector? I think the public sector will have to make the most out of scarce resources in the past. And the debt is rising, the fiscal situation is becoming more challenging. So this calls for reforms on several fronts. Now, one of that is, for example, better spending. You will need to make more out of the kind of resources and the kind of spending that are out there. And that may also imply resisting some of the temptations of the political process to really focus the spending on where it leads to the largest results. Then, of course, only better spending will probably not be enough. There's also a need to mobilize additional revenues. The report touches upon the recommendation to come back to the original VAT rate of 10%, and the earlier that can be implemented, the better. Of course, we are aware of the political challenges around that, but we think that that would be one important step to move forward. Then there's also scope to bring more people into personal income taxes. The current basic allowance, so the threshold where people start paying personal income taxes, is fairly high, and you can lower that without getting close to vulnerable households. There's a lot of margin to do reforms on that. Then on the question of the productivity, I think one of the points that we're raising is that there is a need to open more sectors to FDI, but also to strengthen domestic competition, and that is particularly relevant with respect to services sectors. One feature that Thailand shares with many of its neighbors in Southeast Asia is a remarkable openness to goods and merchandise trades, but a little more reticence when it comes to opening up services sectors. And we know from the empirical literature how important this is for productivity growth, including in the manufacturing sector, because there's hardly any manufacturing enterprise that wouldn't be sourcing services inputs. And these services are often less tradable, so you actually need to source them from your own country. And so the state of competition and the quality of the services that you get in services sectors domestically is very important. Then the question of domestic competition, I think, is very important. We have this product market regulation indicator which shows the specific areas where Thailand has additional scope for improvement. It's important at this stage of development to really make sure that competition is strong. This will, of course, reduce some rents of some incumbents. This will face political opposition. We are aware that this is not a very easy process, but it's very important to make this next step. And then final point on informality. Of course, informality is a very complex phenomenon, and there are many reasons behind that. So you need a comprehensive strategy. And it's something that Thailand faces with a lot of other emerging market economies, shares with them. We see this in other countries in the region, but we also have many years of following similar challenges in other parts of the world, including, for example, in Latin America. And here, I think it's important for one to focus on education. At this stage of development where Thailand is, education is becoming ever more important. This also pertains not just to the top skills, but also to improving vocational training and making sure that people of lower qualifications really get the kind of training that is demanded by the labor market, so that it's well in line with what industry needs. And then there's this question of social protection, and here we believe that the time has come for rethinking a little bit, building on the strength of Thailand, but also seeing a little bit what some of the weaknesses are. And when you look into the future, the current 10% contribution rate for the formal, for the contributory pension system, that will not be enough. So you will need to eventually raise that, and when you do that, you will face stronger incentive problems than you are. And basically, this contribution rate will mark the price difference between formal sector employment and informal employment. And when you have 63% of informality, there will always be an opportunity for companies to choose this informal route. So you have to be very careful about your incentives that you generate. And here, Thailand has a lot of progress to build on. Thailand has made strong inroads with respect to building up non-contributory pension benefits, the old age allowance. There's also the universal health coverage. And maybe that should become in the future a more central pillar of the social protection framework than you have it at current, with that really being the essence, at least for people with lower incomes, so that you are very careful with respect to the kind of formalization incentives that come from this system. And then just finally on climate, we also stress the questions of disaster management. Thailand faces strong risks, and the better you are with your disaster management, with your early warning systems, the more you can limit the economic damage. There's also a question related to crop diversification, which can help make crops more resistant to climate risks. And then we also touch upon the question of water management, where we also have a few specific points on how that can be improved. I think that's the essence of the messages. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Jens. I was catching one word from you, is temptation from political kind of things. And I believe that it's one of the hardest things to, like, as a policymaker, so the central planning agency, to balance between the short-term government stimulus package and also the medium-term structural reform. So that's this thing that I believe that Thailand has to push upon more over coming periods. So since we have limited of time, so we can move to the second panelist that we have here, Dr. Somarat Jantarat. She's the Executive Director of Boy Institute of Economic Research. Definitely, I think everyone knows her. She does a lot of in-depth analysis, in particular on productivity and also on financial, in terms of, in particular for the agriculture sector, agriculture debts, for example. And also, what we have to ask from your views with the fact that how has you see or Boy Research Institute see in terms of the performance of the Thailand's productivity over the recent years? What you can show us with in terms of the most noticeable patterns across sectors or across firm levels that you could share with us, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very good morning, everybody. Perhaps I'll start setting stage by sharing 3 highlight facts that our researcher at the Bank of Thailand as well as the Institute have been doing, looking at Thailand's productivity at a macro level, at the sectoral level, as well as the firm level. Right. So first, first key highlight fact basically echo similar things that I think the OECD report have been talking about. Trying to flip my slides. So maybe someone can flip for me. All right. Okay. Thank you. So the macro picture basically looking back at for the past 30 years or so, we basically see persistent slowdown in Thailand's productivity growth, right? So from pre-2000 of around more than 5% up to now post-COVID of less than 1%, right? Now looking at the contribution of this productivity growth also show us how Thailand's economic structure have been changing over time as well. Starting from pre-COVID, pre-2000, you can see the majority of the contribution to productivity growth has been through the yellow, which is the labor allocation from agriculture to manufacturing sector. Then shifting to the period of 2000 and 2010, those are time where manufacturing has contributed to the majority of the productivity growth. 10 years before COVID, I think the structure shift from manufacturing lowering down, and service has been the key contribution to this productivity growth. Though we didn't gain that much from labor allocation from other sector to service, because service sector, I think Jake mentioned, is one of the sector where we have low productivity at the very first place. And now we are at the post-COVID stage where all sectors productivity have been declining. Right? And this is very concerning, especially when we compare to other countries that has been or started to have higher productivity growth already. Second fact, we look into sectoral productivity. We basically see widespread low sectoral productivity across the board. Right. On your left, we basically rank productivity by sector from the smallest to the highest. You can basically see that from all sectors, the productivity tend to be quite skewed. Right? We have small number of capital intensive sector that has very high productivity, whereas majority of the labor intensive sector has been having very lower than average productivity, and those basically occupy about 70% of our labor force. Right? On your right, we do similar thing, but only focus on sectors in manufacturing. We see similar story, right? A very small number of sectors that perform very well, but all in all, this low productivity across the board have been affecting our competitiveness of all the firms and sectors across the board of Thailand. Third fact, look at the firm level. Here we basically look at TFP at the firm level using census data, 2012, and then once again 2022. We see largely productivity patterns tend to be uneven, right? Particularly our SMEs tend to lag behind quite a lot. On your left, we basically plot TFP at the firm level, one at the 2012 and then again 2022. The red crosses are those SMEs where you can see productivity decline over the past decades, whereas the blue, those are large companies tend to still gaining some productivity growth, right? So these basically widen the gap of the large versus SMEs productivity quite a lot. So on your right, basically show the gap of this productivity between these two type of firms that has been widening across manufacturing sector as well as service sector. So again, this is particularly concerning because SME contribute about 35% to our GDP, but occupy about 70% of our labor force. Right. So I think those are the three key highlight facts I'd like to show and share with you today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Somara. This is very insight and definitely what we have to confirm that our country's productivity remain lower. And first would be in terms of the, moving out labor force from, low productivity sector to more higher productivity sector. That is one of the key reasons. And another one that Dr. Somara has confirmed that there is an uneven development between the large firm and also the small firms in terms of productivity growth. So now let's turn to the next, our panelist, that if we talk about competition, never, that would be not the things that we could have unless we have the representative from Thailand's Competition Commission. And today we are very fortunate to have Kun Piyapat Tubin. She's currently taking as acting director of litigation Office of Trade Competition Commission of Thailand. The Trade Competition Commission, as we know, is a lead agency and is the independent body who's responsible mainly for, supervising and also enforcing in terms of the fair trade competition in Thai market. So, Kun Piyapat, could you just elaborate to us a little bit more of what is the role of competition that you see that in terms of enhancing our productivity growth, and what are the key factors that prevent our productivity growth in order to achieve more full and fair competitive market? Please, thank you.
Thank you, and good morning, all the great participants. So, it's very great honor for, on behalf of Trade Competition Commission Thailand today to show about our thought about the competition and productivities. When talking about the competition, most of the stakeholders must focus on the regulators or regulation that behind the competition law. But in another hand, competition have the equivalent and significant role to driving the productivities by...
Can the teams change a slide, please?
Yes, by balancing the roles of regulate and the roles of the promoters and the partners of the Thai business operators. As you have seen in the slide, first of the thing that the competition play the role as the allocative efficiency. And another hand, they have the role to drive the dynamic efficiency. Not only for the allocate one, dynamic one, we have the role to reallocation of the results. Yes, and the last one is lower markup. This is the key roles of the competition, not only for the regulators, but also for driving the productivities in Thailand. So the main key factor that competition authority have focused on, and we have the frames of the 6 risk factor area that focus on the key factor that hinder the competition in Thailand. We separate with the 6 frameworks, which call as the red flag area that we have focused on. First thing is about the state-owned enterprise. Normally in the Competition Act, in the Competition Act right now, we also have the contents of the law in the Section 4, subsection 2, that the law have concern and the law will regulate all the business operators. But for the state-owned enterprise, exclude only the activities that relate with the public service or the national securities that relate with the law or the regulation of the cabinet. But another thing, business activities, they will conduct with the competition law. And also This one is very, very controversial and very, very challenging issue for the competition authority in Thailand because even we have the registration, but for the policy and the implementation progress is not very clear how to balance between the state-owned enterprise activities and competition neutralities between the private sectors and the state-owned enterprise. So this one we will talk about the next step with this issue to solve the problem for the next rounds. And the second one, the issue that we found that the key factor is one of the most important thing is the trade measure that concerns about many government policy somehow that harm to the competition issue. So this one is a very, very big issue for the competition authority tools. So for the registration issue, we also have the registration that focus on the government activities. The third one is the concentration ratio control. This issue, we have the authority to taking care of the M&A or merger and acquisition to conduct or to regulate the firm that we have to merge together, not only for the big one, the medium one, the small one. We have to focus on all of the business operators that have to merge together. And also the next third one is about the jurisdictions. We have the jurisdiction, the cross-border jurisdictions by the competition authorities under the competition law, and also within the foreign direct investment, we have two concerns about this issue that we have the authorities to regulate and also being a consultation to the most of the business operator who come to investment in Thailand. And another one, the competition community is one of the most important thing that we have to gathering most of the government authorities, private sectors to communicate together with the highlight of the competition issue in Thailand to combine the thought or the opinion, to balance about the competitiveness and to regulate the competition law. And also the last one, there's competitiveness. This one is the spirit of the law, of the competition law, that we have to promote the competitiveness between the business operators, and finally the consumer will get the welfare from the competitiveness. So this is the key factors that we call the 6 red flag area that the competition authority have to concern and focus on these frameworks of the competition and productivities.
Thank you very much, Kun Piyapat. I believe that we're trying to making the competition issue not just as a role of regulator. That is what any SEC would like to focus on. But in terms of what Kun Piyapat had just mentioned, that in terms of improving efficiency of the economy, and also in terms of making resource allocation to be really happen. In particular, for those, as you mentioned, about the public ownership through the state-owned enterprise sector, and also through the firms level between large firm and also small-scale firms, for example. So we're going to have a second round for you to share in terms of the policy. Let's move to the next panelist. We have Associate Professor Dr. Nakarin Prin Pathomrat. He's the Director of Social Security Office under the Ministry of Labor. And if you're talking about the labor data, he's the one. I mean, in Thailand, I will prove that. If you would like to get a very insight in terms of labor data, you have to ask Dr. Nakarin. What are the role of labor and social protection policies in the context of informalities, and what have been the Ministry of Labor have been done in terms of tackle with the informality? Can you just share with us, please?
Okay, it is a great honor for the Ministry of Labour to join this meeting. Informal workers are the backbone of our economy. They are the driver of our agriculture, services, and tourism. Without them, I think our economy would stop, and they contribute the massive GDP to our country. Therefore, support them is not a charity, it is an economic necessity. I think Thailand needs to provide the social protection for every worker in the country, not only the formal sector, but it also the informal worker as well. The Ministry of Labour is now working on put the new law to protect the independent worker, to underway them to organize and for forming the association. So we will have the representative collective bargaining. We will know what they really want, and I think in the future we can put the accurate policy on them. We use the social security, I think the Section 40 as the basic benefits for them, like the money for sickness, disability, and retirement saving. But what we really think now is how can we help them to have enough money when they retire. We need to discuss more and balance between the sustainable of funding and the money that we will put on this system. The second thing is quite important, but the Ministry of Labour talk about it very little, is how to boost the productivity for the informal worker. As I told already, they contribute a massive GDP, but the funding that we do for upskill, reskill, we focus on the factory only. Imagine if we can help them to have the better skill, better tool, and the technology to reach the customer. I think they will gain more money and they will have ability to saving their money in the future. The third one we need to accept about ourselves as the government staff. I think we need to build a bridge, not a wall. How can we make the system to be more friendly and more simple for this group of people to connect to our government? So if we can do that in T-Point, I think the future of informal worker will be good and better than before. So that's the answer for me for this section. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I believe that would be the very important thing, how to strengthening in terms of the labor, in particular in the formal sector, to improve in terms of, as you mentioned, upskill, reskill. So now let's turn to the second round of discussion. I'm not going to kind of like use up the time much because I believe that everyone is kind of like waiting for the lunch already. So let's turn to the second round that we're going to focus more on in terms of the policy implementation, policy suggestion, what have been done and what need to be done. So James, there's a lot of recommendations in the survey report. Can you just share with us any best practice of how Thailand could apply and be able to tackle with both the issues of productivity and also informality?
Yeah, sure. So I think on the productivity question, you know, and particularly when it comes to regulations and the competition friendliness of those regulations, I think there the policy indicator, the product market regulation indicators that we elaborate at the OECD provides a lot of insights. It really allows you to look into where are the weaker parts and where are the stronger parts. And when you look at, you know, who's best practice on that indicator, you will see countries like Sweden, like Great Britain, Lithuania, also Ireland. And of course, you know, converging to the best practices of these countries is not a simple task, and it's not something that will happen overnight, but I think there are a few really interesting examples. For example, when you look at how network industries operate in those countries, you typically have a public regulation of access to the network that then allows competition between different actors in those segments where competition is technically feasible. No? And that is one way forward, for example, allowing people to source from different electricity providers through the same network, for example. No? That's one example. And when you look more at the context of emerging market economies, then you see that there are some economies that have actually made significant progress on this. When you look, for example, at the Philippines, there are some aspects of their services sectors where they've come quite far in terms of opening up to more competition. Also, when you look at countries, for example, like Brazil, has made very strong progress when it comes to product market regulation, starting also from a starting point that was fairly unfavorable on the right-hand side of that chart, which is where you don't really want to be. No? But over the last couple of years, there's been a significant progress in Brazil, and what we see now is that over the years, our growth projections, and not only ours, but also those of other economists for Brazil, have repeatedly underestimated their growth outcomes. And that means that, in a sense, some of those reforms have been able to lift the potential growth of that economy. So actually, reforms really yield a dividend. And another example that I'd like to cite is Argentina, which over a very short period of time has already been able to make a lot of progress in terms of reducing administrative burdens. They had a very comprehensive look at what is hampering firm growth in their economy, and they've been able to really reduce that at an impressive pace. So there are good examples, including among emerging markets. Then when it comes to informality, I think education is a key aspect here, and there I would point maybe to the success of Vietnam, which has been a strong performer when it comes to secondary education. Then on the tertiary side, they're also facing some challenges, but with respect to secondary education, they're one of the better emerging market economies in the PISA score. They also managed to have a very low correlation of student performance with the socio-economic background of that student. So in a sense, it's something that equalizes your opportunities, which is also a very good thing. And then, this aspect of the role of social protection in this, which we emphasize in this survey, I think there it's important to point to the success of Colombia, which undertook in 2012 a reform where they were able to reduce their social security contributions by close to 10 percentage points. And when you look at how informality evolved over the following years, you can really see that the curve of the informality is declining. So this has far from solved the problem. Of course, in Colombia, informality is still high, but it shows you that at the margin, reforms have payoff.
Thank you very much, James. That's making more clear to us. Like there's at least, there's several countries that have been successful in terms of tackle that, in terms of competition and informality. Dr. Somarata, you mentioned about in terms of the productivity that's been quite somehow problematic, in particular in terms of the labor-intensive low productivity growth and also in terms of the SMEs. Do you have any kind of suggestion on how to, Thailand should, in order to tackle with those problems?
So thank you. So first, I'd like to perhaps map back to the potential key causes of this low productivity, and then map further to policy recommendation. So I think apart from external factors, tariff and the change in the landscape of intertrade that has been affecting and will be affecting all the firms, I'd like to perhaps raise four main structural problems, which are long-standing problems for Thailand. That have contributed to this low productivity. So first, we have seen low private investment over the past decades. Used to be 6 or so percent, a decade before, and now it has gone down to even below 2%. Right? So low private investment have been impeded basically all the firms, all the sectors from adopting new technology and use adapt to changes in economic condition accordingly. Second, I think we see the quality of our labor has not matched very well with the need of the modern economy. We see that the attempt to reskill and upskill of our laborers to resolve this mismatching problem has not been very successful just yet. I think it's ongoing. We have seen also that there's quite a big budget spent into education, but the quality of education, I think, is one of the main problems here in Thailand. Third, so when we go through the production function, so we have this capital, now labor, now basically financing. I think as the OECD report shows, we have big household debt, as well as our business also have incurred lots of debt as well, and the credit risk has been heightened. So this basically prevent, I think, the financial sector from performing, from effectively channel funds to stimulate growth. So I think those are main struggle as well when it comes to business trying to restructure as well as to adapt, but there's no financial access to them. Last but not least, I think from the government sector, we have seen our politics has been uncertain, and so this basically prevent the country from setting a very clear strategic direction of industrial policy as well as a trade policy, for example. Government themselves bureaucratic as well as this law and regulation that has been outdated, and that tend to hurt and help when it comes to business opportunities and so on. And recent years we have seen the government having put a bit more focus on short-term policy stimulus rather than looking further for long-term. And because we are in the stage where we have this big fiscal burden that also will prevent lots of restructuring activities from taking place. So from all of these causes, I think the large informal sector in Thailand has also been the root cause of these four, as well as will make this policy implication very challenging as well. So now when it comes to policy, I think all these sectors have to join force because all these pain points have been occurring in all sectors involving in economic restructuring as well as to formalize the informal sector. I think they have to join force and work together. The government need to first set very clear direction for the country as well as to create this conducive environment and right incentive for labor as well as for business to grow. Second, I think from the private sector, I think they have to look for good opportunities to innovate as well as to lead the innovation, I think. And last but not least, I think from the financial sector, we have to find ways to channel fund more effectively and more targetedly to those businesses that in need of adaptation as well as restructuring. But all in all, I think I like to emphasize policy implementation. I think over the past decades, we have seen lots of efforts done separately. Private sector have been trying, government have been trying, financial sector have been trying, but they have not come together as a big joint force. We can't, one sector cannot do this alone. So I think the very key is for them to join together. Government set the right incentive, private sector leads the innovation, and then financial sector facilitate the fund so that it channel growth accordingly. So I think that would be it.
Thank you. Can I ask a little bit more, Dr. Somara, in terms of the SMEs, what do you think that we should tackle just only in terms of financing, or do you think anything to enhance their capabilities as well?
Yeah, it's clear that I think when we look at SME, people keep talking about financing as the main impediment. I think that there's a lot more than that. I think SME, they lack opportunity to grow, and they basically lack know-how to grow as well. So when it comes to lifting SME's productivity, I think we have to join force from one side. Big firms need to come and help facilitate, learning of how to do business for the SMEs. But at the same time, government would need to provide a very, conducive environment. For example, we have been working on the project called Reinvent Thailand, where we try to lift up some targeted sectors, and particularly working on agriculture and food in the sector. And we see clearly that there's a lot of SME who want to grow, but at the same time, they're stuck with this one public sectors that prevent them from innovate. They want to try to do future food, for example. They invent quite a good product, but then the product has not passed the the standard of the government. So basically, all in all, to lift up the SMEs, government need to help facilitating the process as well as financing. I think financing is another key factor, but not the only one, right? But when it comes to food financing, I think SME has credit risk problem. And so I think two things would need to be in place. I think one, credit guarantee facility, where high-risk SME can be able to get access to loan with government supporting the loan guarantee, so allowing the financial sector to lend out. But at the same time, how do we ensure that we have alternative data to assess better credit risk, especially SME who are in the informal sector as well.
Thank you very much for sharing. Next, couldn't be a part. What I believe that we have been done a lot, but can you just share with us what the key progress in terms of addressing in terms of the competition kind of problems, or any future plans that you would like to share with us?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, in terms of the competition authorities that I mentioned before about the area that we have to focus on to promote more productivities or the competitiveness in Thailand. For our plan and the next step that competition authority plan to do is about each issue that we have to focus on. First thing first, that we have to like for the SME issue, for the SOE issue, state-owned enterprise issue, we have to policy collaboration with the sectoral stakeholder in Thailand, who is the special one that focus on the state-owned enterprise policy. And the next one, we have to propose a clear guidance about the competition with the state-owned enterprise regulate. And the last one is we have to collaborate, like Dr. Somarat mentions about the joint task force or something like very inclusive, the public sector and private one. And the most important thing that the competition authority need to do is about the propose the recommendation to each government sectors to when they need to adopt some regulation or some policy, they have to concerns about the competition issue. Yeah, and competition authority need to be a central role to contribute know-how, thoughts about the competition harm and competition issue to all the government and also the private sectors. That all I think that which one is very useful for the Thai government to drive the competition aspect to the productivity issue.
Thank you very much for sharing with us, and we hope for getting the new act coming out for the new Competition Act. Let's turn to Dr. Nakarin. Can you just share with us about what kind of policy designs that you think that should be constructed in order to provide stronger incentives for incentivize those informal employment to get into the system, or any future plan that the Ministry of Labor could share with us?
Okay, it's like really challenge for Thailand, not only Thailand but also another country. We become an age society, and why our many workers work outside the system. So the Ministry of Labor think how to turn this challenge into the opportunity. We set 3 big quick wins. The first one is about how can we find a job for the older worker. We work together between the Department of Employment and Skill Development to do some training and find a job for them under the concept of คนไทยต้องมีงานทำ concept. That's the first one that we are going to do. The second one for the informal worker, health is wealth. So when they get sick, they will lose the income immediately. We are now thinking about how can do some prevention, health prevention, with the Minister of Public Health And we also provide the training about how to do the safety, not only in the faculty, but also in the field community or in the market. That's the second thing that we are thinking about. The last one is quite the same with every speaker. So we need to integrate the data together between the public and private sector. So if we have the data, I think we will know what they exactly need. So I think we could do the better and sustainable plan for the future. That are three things that we are thinking about. The last one, the Ministry of Labor accept that informal worker, they are the key engine, but it's heading engine. So we commit to taking care of them. Now, yeah, that's all about the second question. Thank you.
Right. I believe that has been already mentioned in the report, the survey report as well, of how to balance between, tackling with improving in terms of social protection, including those informal sector, but also at the same time has to also provide stronger incentives for the formalization in the labor market as well. So that's a very key challenges for Thailand as a whole. Right. We have come to the end, and I believe that's the time. I'm not sure if any from the floor that you have any questions for the panelists here. If you have anything to ask, just raise your hand. We're going to have the microphone hand over to you. Yes, please. Please also introduce yourself and also asking which panelist that you would like to ask. Thank you. Maybe we could have just only one more.
Thank you very much. My name is Piset Sarjan from the Thailand Institute of Justice. I would like to thank all the panelists for the very insightful sharing of your views. When we discuss the issues surrounding productivity, I think from our own institute, maybe there is one very difficult scenario where it could put a lot of what we have discussed today on a very crucial test, which is the situation surrounding the likelihood of those formerly incarcerated to come into the society and become productive again. I raise this issue because it is quite unusual situation for Thailand. We have quite high imprisonment rate. One of the top 10 country, 400 people within 100,000 people are being incarcerated, very high recidivism rate. And a lot of effort have been put to rehabilitate these people, to allow them to become a more productive citizens again. And when we discussing vocational training in the secondary school, I think it's one important issue that the government needs to work closely with different agencies. But when it comes to difficult situation when you face with the different perspectives and purposes, on the one hand, you need to do the sentencing. You need to allow these people to take responsibility for their wrongdoing. But on the other hand, I can't help but thinking that maybe there is also hidden potential in what we can do with them in trying to convert them and transform them into a more productive labor force for the country. We have about 300,000 people incarcerated, and about nearly 1/3 of them will be coming back in prison again in 3 years. So that's a staggering stat. And I'm wondering if the panelists maybe would have any thoughts on this kind of mixed issue of social issues and economic dimensions, how we could tackle along this kind of issue, and maybe anyone that could share your thought. Thank you.
Right, thank you for the questions. I'm not sure if any panelists could share. Yeah, maybe Dr. Nakarin.
I think the question is about how to increase the productivity, right? So to answer this question, I would like to separate into two questions. Before they coming to work, it's like the law for the Ministry of Education. I think the problem is our curriculum is quite delayed. So the government staff need to think together what will happen to our country in 10 years. And we draw the curriculum together. That's the thing that I would like to answer the first question. And the second question is about when they work. I think their own or themselves need to know what there will be in the future. And so for the Ministry of Labor, we will do like the 50 plus for upskill and reskill. We will think about it. So it's like the co-pay for skill development. So we will do a two step. Yeah.
No matter what, they already been present or not, right? Has been included. Yeah. James, do you have any particular example from other countries that have been done to?
So our report has not delved particularly into the question of formerly incarcerated people, but I think what this brings me to think about is really the importance of lifelong learning opportunities, and providing them, and how they, in a rapidly changing world where the technology is changing very quickly, it's important that you give people other opportunities beyond their initial education when they were a child or when they were youth, to really adapt their skills to the needs of the labor market. And I think this is something that has a high payoff. We see some countries that have been quite successful with this. There are a few examples to mention, but it is of course also something that will require resources. So I think if we want to invest more into education, this also ties into the questions of mobilizing additional resources that we've touched upon in the survey. And this shows you how many of these issues are interrelated.
Thank you very much. And I believe that it's very one key challenge because it needs collaboration among different ministries in order to handle with that kind of issues. Any other questions from the floor? Right, I believe everyone ready for the lunch. We are kind of like eat up some of the time minutes. So thank you very much for all the panelists. Thank you OECD team for joining us today. And I believe that everyone learned a lot of issues in particular that's related to productivity. I believe you all know, but this is just to confirm again, as in terms of the productivity, in terms of competition, in terms of informality that we're confronted with. It's not for the sake of what impacts we have. It's not for the sake of what we need to do. We know what we need to do, but it's for the sake of implementation. As Dr. Somrat has been mentioned, the joy force, we need collaboration, not just from the government sector, but also from the private sector and also academia as well, that, in order to drive Thailand moving forwards and becoming the membership of OECD in the coming years. So thank you very much, all the participants, and have a round of applause to all the panelists. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Just to say, I would invite everybody to have a look at our report. The report is freely available on the internet. My colleague Phil and I, we have a lot of small business cards with the QR code that brings you directly to the report. So I invite everybody to have a look at that report. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again to all panelists, moderators, and participants for your valuable contributions and exchange of the idea today's event. To help us continue to improve our seminar, we kindly invite you to share their feedback by scanning the QR code that will be displayed on the screen.
Okay, and at this moment, today's event has officially concluded. So thank you all participants. We are now invite you to lunch at the cafe next to. As you leave the hall, please receive the lunch coupon from our staff at the exit gate. Lunch is served at cafe next to on the level 1. Once you take the escalator down, you will find the room on the left-hand side. So please enjoy your meal. And once again, thank you very much.
Goodbye.